Okay. So it looks like no errors. And yep, there we go. The phone has kernel panicked on LiveBoot again. But strangely, it actually didn't show what crashed. Now, let's go to the screenshot. So here is what the log said just before it kernel panicked and crashed. It looks like over here it was just doing average stuff. But when we get to the connectivity service, it's a debug. So it's blue. Connectivity service, request from peered, UID peered. Tunnel, index, main color. Main color. I've never seen this log before. Okay, it looks like it's trying to do something there. We've got just default stuff. Accessory manager service. Ignoring non-encrypted aware service. For Sony app monitor. Seems like the app monitor service has been triggered. Over here it says Android OS hardware blender starting thread pool of the display. So what must have been happening was, I think this was the point where the display usually goes a bit dim just as it's about to boot into the Android system. Because sometimes when Android starts up, the screen will go dim a bit. So I bet that's what happened here. Get display settings, enabled false. Android display again. For enabled 0. And then it's starting for the graphics now. And then it says, and that's the system UI, that disable errors to win. And then the last log is set vendor property E for color settings 0. And then it kernel panicked and restarted. This is the point where we're going to be loading up a command that a YouTube commenter gave me. So the phone looks like it's running now. So what we're going to do is we're going to connect it to the computer. See if the watchdog triggered it or the kernel was panicking. So now let's load up the Android shell. And we're going to go into root mode. So let's now grab the command. So what this command does is it puts out an output of what happened in the kernel. So for the moment of truth, let's see if it's a kernel panic or a watchdog reset. Okay, so let's now scroll up. Let's go to the very top of what happened. Okay, so here's where it begins. Sysrecruit has triggered a crash. We've got a kernel bug at this address. Verbose debug info unavailable. That's not good. We've got an internal error for a bug 0960045. Premint SMP. So this looks like a crash. Now, let's scroll down. We've got all the CPU stopping. 8 stopping. 5 is stopping. And now let's go down. So here it is. We've got a total active client count 0. We've got a kernel offset. And we've got a rebooting in 5 seconds. So, yep, this is when the kernel panic must have happened. And now it's just going for a restart. And then here it is. Causing a watchdog bite. So here it is right here. So what happened is something happened in the kernel and it's caused a watchdog bite and caused a restart. So here it is. A watchdog bite has happened and it's caused the system to reboot. And we've got something from the watchdog here. Watchdog STS XO1 T03 bark time, and then that happened and it just restarted. Not only that, I found it. It is a kernel panic. So as I was scrolling vlogs, it took me several times, but my eyes finally caught it. So there we go. Kernel panic, not syncing, fatal expression. So it is definitely a kernel panic. I was right all along and I didn't even... Oh, there we go. It's a kernel panic. Monktel was kind of correct with the watchdog, but he was not sure if it was a kernel panic. He stated in the YouTube comments that it wasn't a kernel panic. But it is a kernel panic, because I know how the kernel panics. So here is the information. So here it is. A kernel panic on Android is a critical error that causes the operating system to halt, meaning it stops, preventing further operation. It simulates the kernel of the core. The core of the Android system has encountered a fatal error and it can't recover from. This is a safety mechanism to prevent further damage or data loss. So, there we go. Halts the system, spits out all of this, and prevents corruptions and stuff, and data loss. And then it causes the watchdog to restart the phone. So yeah, it was a watchdog bite causing a restart, and it's also a kernel panic. So now we fully know. I knew this from experience because I actually used to have another Sony phone that actually did the same thing. Unfortunately, it's been recycled now. It was a phone just like this that had a fault in the NAND. It was unable to read some memory, and every time it read some memory, it would kernel panic and restart. I managed to debug it, and I managed to get the results, and it said kernel panicking, fatal not syncing on the phone. This isn't the phone that kernel panics, this is a working version. The other phone that was kernel panicking, which was this, was recycled. There we go. Now we know it's a proper kernel panic, and also a watchdog reset. So, now let's submit these logs to ChatGPT to see what's happening. So this is when it was booting up the operating system. You can actually see it's opening requests for boot.modem. So that's probably all the modem files and stuff. What's happening is, oh, there it is, that everything's not set yet. Something was not allocated. And then what happened here was server went to rejected version 0. And then it just kernel panicked just randomly. But here, before it kernel panicked, we've also got a warning. Just your standard warnings. Seems like it's loading all the drivers here. So yeah, it was a kernel panic. Let's now submit the logs to ChatGPT and see what happens. Let's see what ChatGPT says. Right, let's submit. This is a kernel panic log. Here's the breakdown. Interesting. It's actually not a manual trigger. That's the thing. I did not manually trigger this kernel panic. It just kernel panicked. It's talking about the C and stuff that... This kernel is tinted. I think I saw that log. I'm not too sure. There's some experience. I know what a kernel panic is. Customized. I think this is inaccurate. Let's ask AI mode in Google and see what it comes up with. So, that's much better. This is a crucial, indicates a crash was intentionally intentionally triggered. This isn't a random access. Someone has deliberately caused the system to panic. Strange, I did not trigger any of that. This is the core kernel, confirming it's a kernel error. So yeah, it is an internal kernel error. Fat expert file systems. Likely due to it's a SIM card detection. Could be that. Hispanic code occurred on CPU core 2. As tinted indicates non-GPU generator since model was loaded. Debugger more difficult. So further confirms this is the cause. Kernel panic and not failure. This is the final error message. Indicating the kernel is completely unresponsive and cannot recover. Interesting. So while it says while the ChatGPT says it's an intentional crash, like intentionally crashed, like a forced crash. But the thing is, I actually did not trigger this. This happened just in the system within itself. So something funny's going on in the kernel. Either just a random app or something's put that in, or it's just another glitch. Sys IQ triggering a crash. Interesting stuff. Has not just a byte. And there is the log and stuff. So we have asked ChatGPT if it's a PMIC or RAM failure. And yes, it has confirmed it. Again, the density be hard, including the PLC RAM, but although it's not always the root cause. Even though it says you triggered a crash, I did not trigger this at all. It just did it on the system. So yes, here it is. Current corruptions are organizational structures. Cause unexpected behavior when provoking sysregate, even though the crash is intentional. It's intentional. That may have been the cause then. And I have seen these ups and bugs errors, especially if corrupt memory recently accessed. So yes, sudden kernel panics. I think, yeah, that keeps happening. I mostly get warnings about some detect in the kernel log. So both American process associated, especially if the invisity is under load or in random conditions. So yes, that now points it out. There we go. So this is now Google now. If the crash, if this is log about it suggests something else may have tried to trigger it. Probably a rogue gap or system malfunction. I think it's a system malfunction that's caused this. All right, see if Google shows this. And the answer is yes. Yep, that's true. The provided log indicates it was triggered manually, so I can't tell why that's happening. Interesting stuff. So here it is. It's managed to catch logs of the boot kernel panic. It says it's a manual kernel panic, even though I never triggered a manual kernel panic. To confirm, I am now going to load the script again to see if it shows any logs. Okay, it actually didn't show anything this time. I've redone the log and yeah, it's showing no like outputs of kernel panics and stuff. Even though the AI says it's a manual triggered by like manually. In my opinion, it also said it could be triggered by a system malfunction. So I think it was a system malfunction that's caused this kernel panic. Especially with the oops and the bug. That can be caused by like PMIC RAM stuff as well. And kernel bugs, that's especially like PMIC and RAM stuff. So, yep, I guess it was just automatic or a system malfunction. At the very end of the script, the watchdog domain and stuff restarted it, and it caused a watchdog bite, and then after that it rebooted the phone. This is it, guys. Thanks for watching and subscribe.